amazing. First off, I heard that you guys have been on a tour, right? Doing the different screenings and things like that. Can you talk a little bit of just how those experiences have been so far?
Wow. First, thank you all for being here. Very much appreciated. It's been incredible. It's been incredible. I mean, we've been, as a filmmaker, you're in a vortex for a very long time, uncertain if the path you are charting is the right one. And when the film finally comes out, it's like you can't take it back. So to be blessed to have audiences feel all the intended feelings. They laugh, they cry, they gasp. It's quite an incredible experience. I've also had the privilege of being at almost every Q&A panel, which is a lot of work. But no, I've really enjoyed, whether it's being with the artisans and the brilliant minds that helped me create it, or the cast, who you just have to see to believe. I mean, just their passion, what this means to them. Fantasia, who I'm calling the Phoenix, just reborn. It's just unbelievable. Danielle Brooks, who you're just gonna be blown away by, and the legendary Taraji P. Henson, who, my goodness, I mean, after 20 plus years, her fans are gonna see her do things they've never seen her do, which for me are just amazing things. Colman, Domingo, Hawkins. So I've just really had the incredible privilege of being with this incredible team, talking about how we made this film, the intention around it, and it's just been received in an amazing way.
So when it was decided that this was going to be a musical version of the film and the play, what were your initial ideas, and how did Stephen and Kris enter into the project?
Well, I got a call from my agent that they were remaking The Color Purple, and said that my name was in the mix. And I said, hell no. Yeah, I can't be the one. This is sacred work. This is Alice Walker's brilliant Pulitzer Prize winning book, a source of healing for many. This is Steven Spielberg's cinematic classic. There's a Tony Award winning Broadway play that people camped outside for many nights to get tickets for. This is not something you play with. So I was very reluctant, very, very reluctant. You know how agents get. They keep pushing. And I said, I'll take the meeting, but before I do, I need to go back and read Alice Walker's novel. Because for me, that is the source, that is the endless well. And if you are going to attempt this iteration, I needed to know that there was something in it for us. And I found what I was looking for on the first page, first line. It says, Dear God, I'm 14 years old. I've always been a good girl. Tell me what's going on, what's happening. And I went immediately, all right, well, anyone who is writing letters to God must have a sprawling imagination. I said to myself, if we can just dig deeper into Celie's imagination, we will actually earn our way into the canon that is The Color Purple. And right there, I had the meeting, and Stephen Bray, thankfully, is one of the originators of the Broadway play. And so that was amazing, because on day one, I could start building a shorthand with someone who had spent several years, understanding the machinations of how the Broadway play worked, integral to its creation. And then Kris Bowers, I'd been a fan of, all his brilliant work, from the Bridget and stuff he had done, but also some of the work he had done for Ava DuVernay. And I knew that I needed somebody who could do both scale and intimacy, which was kind of, for me, became like the the litmus test for everybody I hired. It's like you're not afraid to do some of the biggest, most incredible, you know, epic sounds or create visuals, but you also know how to pull back and just tap into those very intimate moments. So I brought them all, I brought Kris on board, but I also brought Kris on board very early, because I also understand that, you know, filmmaking is not a siloed sport. It is a truly interconnected, interwoven, you know, creative endeavor. And the more you're aware about how Stephen Bray and Brenda Russell and the late great Halle Willis came up with this musical, the better he can figure out how to blend it all together from a score perspective. So even though the studio wasn't really with it, I was like, we're bringing Kris on super early, much earlier than anyone will ever think about bringing on a composer. They fought us a little bit, but we always win. We always win. We know how to persuade them. But I think just having Kris on so early and having not only having him on early as an observer, but also an active participant in helping us reimagine the music. So he was composing large orchestral elements to go with, you know, records like What About Love, you know? And he was so integrated that when it came time for us to expand into the score space, I mean, he knew it all, backwards and forwards.
Kris, what was it like when you got that call?
Yeah, I think that similar to Blitz, the first information I got was, you know, are you interested in doing The Color Purple? And I was like, I don't know. And then they said that Blitz was the director, and I was like, yes, like immediately, because I still have so many images burned in my brain from the burn of Kojo, like the car burning on the beach, or the sparkles over the girl with the umbrella, and same with Black is King. And I knew that this was going to be different, and also such an epic reinterpretation of this story. I knew it was going to be so rich in terms of its cultural proximity and representation, and just incredibly artful. And so for me, I just was excited to be a part of it, and knowing that it was a musical, I didn't even know how I was going to fit in, but I just was like, it would be an honor to be a part of this legacy, but also especially what I imagined Blitz's vision would be.
And Stephen, I mean, you've been with the project through, you know, various iterations, obviously on Broadway and now with the remake. What do you think gives this so much life? That it's just as popular today. Was talking the other day to a friend. Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking the other day with a friend, and we were talking about comparing the Margaret Avery version of God is trying to tell you something with the one with Taraji's. I mean, it still resonates. Why do you think that is?
Well, the story, you can go back to Alice Walker. I think the story has to do with especially Black people being resilient and being able to find the capacity for what I think we talk about it as radical forgiveness, and how no matter what you've endured, if you have a relationship with God the way I think Shug sort of espouses in the story, you can endure anything, and you'll come out on top, and you'll come out radiant with love, and I think that doesn't get old. So I think it continues to, you know, vibrate for us and resonate for us, and thank God, you know, Blitz came aboard, and Kris, and you know, I worked with Kris on Respect, and then my wife Stephanie Elaine worked with Kris on Dear White People, I believe, and that's when I first heard it. I said, we want him whenever we can. So, and I think the team, you know, as Blitz was saying, you know, Marcus Gardley, who we haven't mentioned yet, you know, brought in some moments in the screenplay that I thought, oh, this is, I've been waiting for this for 20 years, because there's only so much you can put into the story, especially when you have songs driving a musical. iteration. But he just put some gems in the screenplay that I won't spoil for anybody, but they really help bring what I'm talking about in terms of the essence of the story, the essence of what Alice was putting on the pages onto the screen.
I want to talk about, and you guys all touched on the different mediums that this story has been told in. What are the things that translate from each medium, from the book version to the play to the film, and then what are some of the new elements, especially in the film, that are introduced in the new medium?
Well, I can jump in and say, Blitz was able to get into the imagination of Celie in a way that, we can't do on the stage. It can't happen in the book you make your own pictures, obviously. And on the stage, you're limited. You have a proscenium, you have lights, you can turn them down or turn them up. You can't do dissolves, you can't do crossfades, and you cannot imagine, the way that Blitz was able to get into Celie's mind. And so I think that was a beautiful, gift.
What I love is, even just watching you guys backstage, it seems that there is a relationship that you guys have that kind of helps translate in how you work together. Can you talk a little bit about just pulling this team together for this project?
Yeah, I really believe in working in harmony. I've always said in the capacity as a director, my job is truly a conductor, right? It's to find brilliant, creative minds. First chairs only. That's my theory. Just the best of the best. And my job is to make sure that we share space and time. And we're able to talk through all the things we're uncertain about, honestly, candidly, and share information. Like one of the first things I did was create a Dropbox that was accessible to all at every time. And it was mandatory that whatever idea you had, it didn't matter what shape and form it was in, went into that Dropbox. Because as artists, we always don't want to share the first draft. The problem is that if you wait too long, in that first draft, people don't get to help you shape that first draft. So by the time we need it, it's just rushed. So I encouraged everybody to put their first draft in, because then Francine, my costumer, can get an idea based on, oh my goodness, that's where you guys are going with the music? I think that red dress for sure is gonna work. Or Fatima can go, oh, I see what you're doing with the costume. I know you're not there yet, but just based on the color palette, I understand how I'm going to work with choreography. My DP can go, oh my goodness, that's the rhythm that you guys are going for. Yes, the song isn't done, but just by hearing the beat, I know that this has to be a dolly shot, or I know this has to be a crane shot. And so for me, that was like the primary thing, was to make sure that everybody was on the same page. I also did what I've done on every single film. I'm born originally in Ghana. I didn't have access to, film school, movie cameras, recording equipment. But all I always had was a pen and a pad. So I drew. I've always drawn. It doesn't matter what creative endeavor I'm getting into, I start with a sketch first. And on this film, as soon as I read the script, I started storyboarding. And I storyboarded upwards somewhere close to 1,500 frames. And I do that for a few reasons. One is, I just want everybody in my team to know this shit is serious. Okay? And we're not gonna play with it. And every frame is gonna represent something that we're all gonna be working towards. Because the reality is, if I gave everybody on this stage a script, we're gonna end up with same script, same words, we'll end up with 5 different movies. Because everybody sees the world different. Where the camera goes will be different. The only way you can ensure we're all making the same movie is if everybody can look at that frame and go, oh, that's the director's intention, and my job is to help him make that frame work. And what I do beyond that is I scanned all my storyboards, I cut them all into a 2-hour, 15-minute, sequence, I got Fatima's skeleton crew dancers, cut them in as well, and then I hired voice artists to read the entire script. And I know it's sounding a bit OCD-ish, but let me just say, it was really helpful. The scale of this movie is so big that if we cannot already have a sense of what it is, we're all gonna come and we'll be lost. So it was mandatory that if you were a department head, you had to sit through my 2-hour, 15-minute pencil sketch of this movie. But it made a difference. We laughed while we watched it, we cried while we watched it. I mean, there were things, and I said to myself, if this, I went and found Temp's score, I went on YouTube, I found, sound effects, so it was in there. So there's a version of this movie you might never get to see that is very close to the movie we ended up making. And what I also do is, once that version has seeped into the hearts and minds of my team, it never showed up again. I never brought my storyboards on set. I never did any of that. Because it's not about us trying to approximate that. It's about us understanding the meaning and intention of these moments, right? And each team member I picked specifically because they were going to help me actualize that single frame and that single moment. And so, yeah, I mean, it took a while, several months of work, but I think we came out the other side.
Yeah. It's. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but
We can definitely clap for that.
I don't know if you've ever seen it, but Francis Ford Coppola did a book, The Godfather Notebook, where he took the novel and he annotated every page of it. What I'm going to do here, what I'm going to do there. What Blitz did with his sketch was the same sort of detail. If you look up the word preparation in the dictionary.
Now, how did you decide what music to keep and what music to lose from earlier versions of this?
Are you looking at me? Well, it wasn't my decision. But I think that wisely, there was a decision made. I mean, you can't fit the whole 2.5-hour musical. There's too much music. But I think there was a really wise decision made by Blitz in the studio to make sure that there was music for today's generation, for a contemporary audience, so that everything wasn't 20 years old. I think that would have been a different experience for people, and I think bringing in Nova Wave and The Dream, who will be sitting here eventually, I think was a brilliant idea to keep it current and keep it contemporary and keep it relevant to
And
today.
the whole idea is to introduce it to
A new generation, exactly. I just hope that the next generation is not AI. That part.
Yeah, I wanted to, you kind of going where I was headed. How, having all of the rough drafts, how did that change your approach with creating the music versus, different projects that you worked on? What was the difference in this project?
Yeah, I think for me, it was knowing that intention that went behind it. I think that hearing every iteration and what was the reasoning for continuing to iterate and why was it not done? And so many times it was like, is that really the reference we should have for this track? Maybe we should go to this other reference. And Blitz always had these super specific references that were based on maybe it's about the production, maybe it's about the groove, maybe it's about the tempo, maybe there's some reason we're looking at this reference. And I think that level of iteration really helped me not only get to know these songs, but also get to know the reason why we were doing these things. I think about when we created that banjo for the opening sequence, and one of the things that Blitz said, he was like, I think that, I want the 14-year-old in the audience to be nodding their head as soon as they hear that banjo coming at the beginning, which is something you've never heard before, is a 14-year-old being that hyped about a banjo. And I think that type of, again, proximity to this era and culture is something that really helped me be as intentional with the score side of things.
I love that. And, listen, I come from hip hop. That's my language, Public Enemy came to Ghana in 1992, and that's why I'm here today. You know, I for the first time, the world opened up to me. And I said, if brothers and sisters on the other side of the world had found this powerful medium to communicate to the world, they didn't go to the Juilliard, they didn't go to music conservatories, and the world is forced to stop for them. Whatever power is in that medium, I would love to participate in it. Because hip-hop is sample culture, it made it available to you no matter where. I had the privilege of being a musician for over a decade, performed in over 30 countries. No matter where I've been, hip-hop culture is seminal to youth culture, you know, because if I'm a Brazilian hip-hop artist, I can sample samba or bossa nova. All I have to do is have those hard drums, and I'm in. If I'm in Ghana, which is what we did, we took high life records, Afrobeat records, added some, you know, funky drummer breaks, and before you knew it, we had our version of hip hop, which we called hip life. And so I approached nothing without the lens of hip hop. Nothing. When we were that banjo, I called him, I was like, you know that Goody Mob joint? That's what we were channeling. So all of a sudden, that banjo is cool as hell. And we all know that banjo sound is not cool. But that is what hip hop does. And Hell No, which is for me one of my favorite kind of reimaginings, all that is Hoes a Takeover. Yeah, if you really strip it down, you will hear Hell No, you know, with that aggression, and it's got a little bit of Biggie's Kick in the Door. But again, you don't know. I'm saying is that's the power of this culture. It helps you, you know, it's tactile. You can pull from all things, and cinema is as close to hip hop as you could ever imagine, because cinema is an amalgam of all these other creative endeavors. You've got some literature in there, there's some photography and fine art in there, there's some music and cadencing in there. So, you know, the culture itself, you know, is naturally imbued in cinema. So when I got the chance to, you know, really participate on this very high level, I brought all that with me. And it was what also taught it. But also, you know, it even goes beyond hip hop a little bit in terms of just how black music, no matter where you find it, has a cadence into it. And one of the biggest things I said to myself upon hire was, I'm not really concerned. I knew we'll figure out the color purple, because that's ancestry work. You know, if you can tap into your ancestors, you'll find the color purple. I wasn't worried there. My biggest challenge was, how were we going to attack the musical medium itself? So many musicals were failing at the time, and the studios were very reluctant to fund our film based on past failings. And so I had to watch every single musical ever made. I mean, to make this movie. And I found that the ones that functioned well were the ones that, well, first I found what the problem was. The problem was that music just appeared from the sky for a lot of these musicals. And I immediately said, I think that's what's wrong with the medium. So we all got to work immediately and started asking ourselves, how can we create a source for the music? And a diegetic source, a source that is environmental. So right from when the movie opens, and I'm sorry I'm going to spoil it for some of y'all who have not seen it, but trust me, you hear a horse's hoop that kind of builds up a little beat, a little cadence. You hear the girls in the tree playing patty cake, and then you hear the banjo come in with that Goody Mob. So now y'all know the song. The minute you hear it, you go, oh, that's that Goody Mob, right? But all to say, there was always a source, and it always built on itself, right. Which is what, again, if you just black cadencing does that. That's just how we move. Everything just builds on each other. The dozens, you know, all these things are just they just build on. And so that's all we did. There's a scene where the gentlemen are building a house with hammers and saws and such. Before you know it, it's like it's turned into a rhythm. They're putting up posters. It turns into a beat, you know. And I think that most people have come up to me and said, "Man, I hate musicals, but I loved your movie." I think that's what it is. That we grounded the music in reality, right? And that's it was a very small thing in the scheme of things, but it moved the needle so far because all of a sudden the audience could find the source.
Wow.
We're going to toss a clip and then talk about it. So the first one is everybody wants to be loved, which Mr. Bowers here had something to do with. So talk about the construction of the music used to support that theme.
Yeah, you know, that one was such a subtle approach to that. You know, we talked about how that scene did need music, but at the same time couldn't have something that was overbearing or was taking away from the moment and the conversation. And so, you know, my approach to writing it was really, in terms of like the orchestration of it and the pacing of it, was almost like church, like basically just accompanying her and like making these little slight adjustments. And you know, there's it's a very simple piece, but at the same time, there's like all these little like the shape of it is based on what she's saying. She starts talking about all the things you can see God in, and then towards the end, there's another shift when Celie has her response in terms of like, you know, her questioning of God. But what was interesting is I did the first pass of it. It felt like it had the right tone, and then Stephen actually was, you know, made a great suggestion of actually quoting The Color Purple, the song The Color Purple there. And most of the score, Blitz and I worked to create these tangents that are connected to the songs, but of their own. And this was one of the only times where we were really intentional about planting that seed of that song, because we don't hear it up until the very end of the movie. And so this being literally them talking about The Color Purple, Stephen had a great idea of using that. So I went back and reshaped, kind of approached it similarly in terms of the shape and all that, but just using that exact melody and harmonic information so that it felt connected to that.
Wow. This is amazing. It's amazing. We're going to go to the third clip.
Okay.
We'll go to the third clip. So, you want to introduce that one?
Sure.
I mean, we could go to the second one.
Why don't we?
Let's do the second one. So we'll go to the second clip.
And this is called Nettie's Song.
Wow. Let's see if this come out already. Can you talk, you know what I'm interested to know now that I'm hearing the process, how close was that to the first draft reference?
Well, this is one of the moments Stephen was talking about where this was written by Nova Wave. It was something that we needed because Nettie needed a song, one that would be a piece of encouragement to her sister, knowing that very soon the sisters would be torn apart. And so, you know, we taxed Halle with coming up with something that she would sing, and she went to her team and co-wrote that song with them. And when we got it, it didn't feel like it fit in the fabric of the movie because it was, as you can tell, it has a bit of a poppier.
So much life and
Yeah,
possibility.
exactly. So I called Stephen and Nick, and I said, I think it just needs to be darker. You know what I mean? To feel the tone of the movie a little bit. It can't be too bright because of where we are in the story, also what I knew was coming. So we got all together and, there's this incredible Ahmad Jamal joint, Say a Little Prayer. Da-dum, da-dum.
That's the hip hop.
Yeah. I can't help it, y'all. Sorry. So you know, I was just like, you know, like it felt like it had a drive, and so you know that we're hearing, that was the inspiration for that, and I feel like it just grounded us a little bit more. It was just grittier, you know, and it helped kind of contrast Halle's very sweet voice with something that was just a little bit more gritty. And I think it really, eventually, in the scale and scope of the story, it really, really fit.
And then final credits.
Very good, very good.
And so many people who are going to be listening to this, watching this at home, they won't have the opportunity to have seen these videos. So you're just going to have to go to the movies when it opens on the 25th. But wow.
I did want to shout out to Dream, who wrote that. You know, I knew how I wanted the film to end in terms of those quilts. So throughout the movie, Celie has been quilting. You know, that's like, it was a very subtle thing I always wanted her doing. So anytime she was idle, right from when she was young Celie, she was always had a needle thread, always quilting. And it's a very sacred, very important thing in, you know, the African American, you know, canon, where these quilts are made and passed on and become this, you know, keepsake for families. And I wanted to make sure that Celie would be doing this. It's something that she can bequeath her grandkids down the line. So I knew that we also had a lot of iconography, so moments from the movie that would be memorable. So I, you know, immediately started sketching, you know, as I always do, you know, moments that I think we can kind of reinterpret. And we had this incredible crew of designers who came in and quiltified that and designed it and really made it. It's all digital, it looks real, but it's all digital recreations. They're incredible. But once we had that, I knew that we needed music that would, you know, kind of, because what I was realizing when we were doing test screenings was when the movie's done, people just want to sit. And they want to just be in those feelings, and they want to stay there a little bit. You know, there's some movies that as soon as it ends, you know, oh, let me get my popcorn, let me get out of here. Yeah, I know it'd be tough getting out of that parking, let me get out of here quickly. This is not one of those films. It's been quite incredible to see people sit and wait and just want to process at the end. So I also knew that Fantasia, you know, who again I'm calling the Phoenix, this is a rebirth for her, not just visually, but sonically. I wanted to make sure that she has her musical moment, because that's how we fell in love with her. Was watching her on that American Idol stage, barefoot, killing Summertime, right? So I was like, I just need the audience to remember that she's literally one of the greatest singers of all time. And I needed them to leave the theater reaffirming that. And so, you know, while we were done and we were testing stuff, you know, the Dream came to see the movie. And I wish he was here to tell you the story himself, but he came in, saw the movie, and he literally, probably 48 hours later, he had this incredible song written, and he's like, I wrote it for Fantasia. You know, it truly is again, you know, this is a bit out of context how we're watching this, but when you sit through this 2-hour, 20-minute movie and you arrive at this, it's a warm blanket, you know, and I'm really thankful that, you know, we all kind of worked hard to make it what it is.
This has been incredible. Absolutely, incredible.
Yeah, I think video is going to be shared with throughout the Grammy system and also throughout APCA's system of subscribers and followers. How can folks keep in touch, follow what you guys are up to?
At Maestro Bray, the various venues that are out there.
Okay.
Yeah, just at Kris Bowers Music for all the different social media platforms.
Okay.
At Blitz Ambassador, one word.
And is there a release date for the soundtrack?
Absolutely. The soundtrack comes out December 15th, and what I love about this soundtrack is it's almost like a double disc. Disc 1 is all the incredible music written, arranged, produced by this incredible team. Right? Matter of fact, it's a triple disc. You go back.
Yes.
So it's all of that brilliant work. Then we also have a soundtrack album, a score album that is just Kris Bowers' incredible score that's going to be available as well. Then on top of that, because that's not enough.
But wait, there's more.
We created an Inspired By album. Because again, I'm a child of the 90s, and I grew up on those Inspired By albums. You know, the Waiting to Exhales, the Bodyguards, you know, and I discovered so many brilliant artists this way. And I feel like, you know, it was also such a seminal part of black music, was the anticipation of the soundtrack for the movie. Sometimes the soundtracks were much bigger than the movies themselves.
Yes, yes.
And so, together with the incredible team at Gamma, who are our label partners, we decided to say, let's open this up. Let's have people come watch the movie and see how they're moved and see it. Because the other thing about The Color Purple, it's so multi-generational. And people who are big artists today grew up. That was their mom's favorite movie, their favorite movie, their auntie's favorite movie. So we knew that there was already a connection to that. So we opened it up, and it was incredible to watch the response. Alicia Keys came, watched the movie, wrote a song called Lifeline for us. Megan Thee Stallion came in, wrote a song, Hell No, did a Hell No remix. We got Keisha Cole. We got, guys, I wish I had the list, because Black Thought came in. Her did her thing. Usher.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane. And again, for me, it harkens back to this amazing time where, you know, black music dominated soundtracks, and it was a moment. And I really cannot wait on December 15th for the world to experience this. And of course, the movie itself comes out in theaters on Christmas Day. Rock your purples, y'all. You don't want to be the only one out there wearing something odd. Okay? Wear your purples, because it's gonna happen, trust me. And we cannot wait for Christmas Day to see people pack the theaters and celebrate this movie.
Wow.
Thank you.
This has been absolutely amazing. You kind of answered the last question I was going to ask, which is why is it important really to introduce this to new generations, and you kind of touched on it already. We were going to try to have time for Q&A. Maybe we get one quick one. We'll do one. Okay, we got.
You know, congratulations. This is amazing. And hi, Kris. Stephen Bray. I've been a fan for years.
Gwen has worked with Aretha Franklin and Clive Davis.
Yes.
I was just curious. It just popped in my mind. What did Steven Spielberg say? How did he about the project?
Wow. I mean, first, when I was hired, I had a chat with Steven. And, you know, I'll even give the fullest context. In 2016, I'd never made a movie. I was in a TED conference. And at TED, you know, they bring all these amazing speakers, but they never really connect y'all. I was like, oh, Steven Spielberg here? I gotta find him. So, you know, so I was just kind of like, you know, acting like I was just going about my business, but I was tracking the man, and boom, caught him in the hallway. And I was like, hey, Mr. Spielberg, you know, I'm a musician, you know, and I would really love to make a film. And I was like, you know, I'm not going to ask you for much. I just want you to give me one piece of advice, just one. I don't need much more, just one that you think will be very helpful to me. And he said, your voice, Blitz. Your voice is the only reason I'll ever see anything you'll ever make. All right, so check it out. This is crazy. So I go to Ghana, I make The Birth of Kojo, which is my first film. And I literally remember every time we frame a shot, I go, is that my voice? Okay, I think it's my voice. Let's go. So then fast forward, I get this call that says they're remaking The Color Purple, blah, blah, blah. So of course I do my first interview with the producers, then I do my next interview with Oprah, which by the way, all of this is surreal because Oprah Winfrey, you know. Anyway, so then they pass me off to Steven, who's like the final frontier. He's the yay or nay guy. And then I go, you know, I get on the Zoom with him, and I say, I don't know if you remember me. He goes, I I remember you. He goes, you were the one with that fancy suit. I was like, oh snap, he remembered the suit. It was like an African suit, and it was doing its thing. But he remembered, right? And what was special was, he said he had just watched the Burial of Kojo. And he was like, that's why he said yes to me. So it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. It is quite insane. And just talk about the power of manifestation, right? Of just going, if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. So anyway, but one good piece of advice he gave me was just make it yours. Trust that voice. And, it's been quite incredible to have, I always say the three GOATs. Steven Spielberg, Oprah Winfrey, Quincy Jones.
Yeah.
Greatest of all
Right there.
time, right? And to have them as kind of the oracles, around, but yet them allowing me to make my movie. That I'm eternally grateful for. Because a lot of people just don't get the opportunity to have these kinds of greats and yet still your voice be respected. So all to say, that's the relationship with Steven, and I'm so grateful.
That was so you guys, man, thank you so much again for being here. We're going to take a quick 5-minute intermission. We do have another panel and performance that's going to be coming up for the film Origin, which we're going to be talking about in just a second. So we'll have to clear the room just for about 5-minute intermission. There's bathrooms in the back, and then we'll come right back in. But thank you guys for being here. We'll see you guys about
Next weekend, the soundtrack will be available for The Color Purple.
We're getting it.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.